Thank you for listening to the Because and Effect podcast. My name is Nolan Bicknell, and I'm now joined by two very special guests. We have Janell Henry and Daina Warren. Janell is the project coordinator for Urban Shaman, and Daina is the director of the Urban Shaman Gallery in Winnipeg. Ladies, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting us.
It's
Hi,
great.
everyone.
It's great to see you. I can see the mask still going. So maybe before we get into the project that we're here to talk about and Urban Shaman in general, just how has COVID kind of changed your guys' lives in the last 2 years or so? How has it affected the gallery? How's it affected your work, and how's it affected you?
Well, it's definitely had an impact for sure on our programming. Not so much on the actual scheduling of things. I was very careful not to cancel any of the artist projects over the last, since going back to March 2020, because that's when we really had the very first shutdown. And so we kind of just pushed back some of the exhibition dates to June. And then there's always been little bits of relief within the restrictions. And so I just kept the programming going, and what we really tried to do is pivot to more of a digital platform. So we have now the virtual galleries going online. So if anything ever happens again, we always make sure we document it really well, so at least people can have the experience of still seeing the exhibition. It's kind of like a Google Maps, like when you walk on the street view or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what it's like going through the gallery. So you can actually move around the space and check out the programming, like all the pieces on the walls or whatever's up. We even have video. We're trying to get publications also up in there. So yeah, so we've been really trying to still make it as immersive as possible, but also just kind of being also very careful with ourselves and our audience. So most of the way people can access the programming right now is through appointment only. And so so then we can monitor who's coming and going.
Of course, safety comes first, but what has been some of the reaction of people who take these virtual tours and see some of the things that Urban Shaman has to offer in a digital space?
So far, the feedback we've been getting has been really great. I think we were kind of we've been wanting to do this for so long, not just because of COVID, but because we really want to try and up our audience around remote and reserve communities within Manitoba and across Canada. And so trying to build these virtual galleries has been a really big, long time goal for us. And so it's kind of working hand in hand with the project we're about to talk about with the Indigenous languages. Just trying to get more accessibility to our programming for Indigenous peoples, but our programming is for everybody. So yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. So Janell, maybe tell me about how you got involved with Urban Shaman, and maybe if you want to talk about the project as well. We have the Sacred Sounds, the Legacy of Anishinaabe Moan, right. You told me before we started recording and I still got it wrong. Sacred Sounds, the Legacy of Anishinaabe Moan.
Yes, perfect. You got it. Awesome. Yeah, actually, I came on through university. Daina was my professor for an Indigenous spirituality and art, and it was an elective. It was my last elective, and they're like, we're hiring for the summer for people under 30. And I was under 30, and so I was like, I'm going to try.
Perfect.
And
awesome.
Then it's been about 6 years.
I can't believe it's been that long.
We're just let's try this language project thing. And I never thought it would be this long, but here we are.
So tell me about it. Tell me about Sacred Sounds. Yeah.
But we have to thank Winnipeg Foundation for that, because really you guys started the seed of all this, the formalizing of this project. Going back to the beginning of Urban Shaman, which opened in 1996. It is our 25th year anniversary. I'm just gonna put that out there.
So congratulations! Very cool.
Yeah. And so Urban Shaman's always been a space about supporting and promoting Indigenous contemporary art. And I think even back then, artists were, utilizing Indigenous languages to title their projects or title their exhibitions. But it wasn't probably until the director before me that the board was really behind trying to incorporate Indigenous languages on a more prevalent level. And so it still took a long time to get going. And for sure, it's been so great that Janell just kind of took it on and really ran with the whole thing. So I'll let her explain that.
Great. Yeah. So go ahead, Janell.
We've seen the reconciliation grant was up, and so we applied to it and we got the 3-year funding. So that really helped us start translating the exhibition text into it. And then as it started going, we started getting more feedback from people. And then we started applying for more grants. And so we started taking on a bit more stuff. And now it's just like, it's snowballing.
That's great to hear. So, I mean, there's a lot of different partnerships and organizations like the university and everything. But what was it like sort of coordinating with so many different groups and on one project? And there's probably a lot of balls in the air at the same time, and you're kind of juggling things as it goes. But just what was it like sort of with so many different organizations all coming together for this one focus?
It's been really amazing. I think it's just been like kind of like steps on a ladder, because like first we had the ideas and we managed to get the funding through Winnipeg Foundation. We started like doing the research on the translators, who's out there, and just slowly building that up person by person, business and organizations. I think Manitoba, what is it called? Manitoba Languages.
Yeah, Manitoba Indigenous Languages Center.
Yeah, cool. which is over on Sutherland, just down in Point Douglas there. They've been like an immense help to us. So we really got to give them a shout out, because they've been so helpful in doing all the translations for all of our stuff. So whether it's been for our print or text materials, our advertising, things like that, it's been it's been so amazing just to be able to talk and find new people to kind of help work with us. So, and we have quite a few languages. So first we started, I think, with just mostly Ojibwe and Cree, but now we're trying to incorporate a lot, which is, it's a big challenge.
No kidding. Well, there's so many languages, and so many languages were lost, right? And tried to be erased. So like, how important is language to culture, and how important is it to maintain and sustain and revitalize these languages that people maybe haven't spoken for a long time? And what's that been like for you guys?
Yeah, that one, like what's language for culture? That's a big one. But I know that that's how our ancestors talk to us. That's how they teach us about the world. And that's how we learn. And so having those present, it really changes your worldview and the way you think about things, and just the whole community, the way you look at things.
Another perspective. Hey, like if you can think in another language or express something in another language, it gives you a whole different perspective on, and maybe you didn't think of it that way, or there's, a word for something that doesn't necessarily exist in English or whatever that's been. What's that been like for you personally on sort of discovering and rediscovering? I don't know what your relationship was with languages before, but like after this project, do you have a new appreciation for language, or how has that affected you guys?
Well, definitely for me, like it's been a huge learning curve. I'm still not fluent in my own language, which is Cree, and I'm Prairie Cree. I'm not Swampy Cree from the north in Manitoba. But I think there's just the realization of how like the worldview around language is so different from a European-based or Western-based conceptual kind of thinking model. So it's really you really have to switch the way you perceive it and the way you kind of look at it. And I think one of the best things I'd heard through Janell and Brennan McKay, who's also working very closely with her on the project, was just like learning that, language is more, the way you pick it up is more through the body rather than, kind of going through a textbook and, studying it, right? So so it's definitely just a whole different approach that you have to take with it. And a lot of the stuff that we're even doing at the gallery for some of the projects and trying to, do artist statements and things like that, they don't always like completely like literally translate from one to the other, because it's just so different worlds coming kind of clashing together right there. So, trying to get the translators to really kind of try and get as close or get the idea across of what the artist is trying to say is, I think, probably the hardest part. And I just got to say thank you to our translators, because they work really hard on trying to make that, digestible for somebody who is fluent in the whatever indigenous language we're like presenting. So
beautiful. That must be such an emotionally like exceptional experience when you're seeing something conveyed in the traditional languages, whereas they might not have been spoken for a long time. What's the most surprising thing about this project for both of you, for Daina and Janell? What was the most surprising part of this thing when experiencing these new languages, not new languages, these old languages, and revitalizing them? What surprised you the most?
The thing that surprised me the most is that this was all Dakota land. And I didn't know that. And so when I first started working on the project, I'm from Rosa River and we're an Ojibwe nation. So like Ojibwe and Cree has always been dominant in my timeline and what's like going on here. Like I'm like, it's Ojibwe and Cree here. And then in talking with a translator, he was telling me that. And I was just like totally blown away.
Wow. And Daina, same question. What surprised you about this whole, 5-year process or however long it's been?
I think what's been, maybe just to go back to even what you had mentioned before, like what's been really amazing about seeing about the project is just having the words up, like, because we have a title wall where all the didactics go with explain, the artist bio and, their artist statement. And, just visually seeing the language is really beautiful. It's that's the stuff that kind of makes me more emotional about this whole initiative, because it's really huge. And we've really been very, I guess, like gung-ho on trying to incorporate it, because considering that we aren't fluent in it, but we're trying our best to like at least make it something that's really special for people who do want to come into the gallery and who can understand it. So
yeah, beautifully said. Obviously, this would be an emotional thing, sort of reconnecting with your roots and with your culture and everything of that nature. So when you see someone sort of experiencing the gallery and reading things in their native tongue, like, how does that make you feel when you watch people or hear from people who are hearing things in their own language? And I would imagine there's a lot of gratitude for being able to maintain or sustain these and revitalize these for people who maybe haven't seen it written or haven't seen it spoken or heard it spoken for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we hear so much from the actual speakers all the time. I know the artists, because some of the artists are Cree or Ojibwe, but a lot of them are kind of out-of-towners. So they're not so sure about, because we're opening it up to whether the artists want to use their own background language. And so a lot of them don't know translators in their language. And so they just kind of, revert to us and they say, well, let you guys choose the language, because I'm not so comfortable with that. Because we don't want to push it on the artists too to have to feel like they have to do that. But we're like, okay, well, if we choose that, then we'll go with the Ojibwe Cree, because that seems to kind of be the more general, kind of more popular, I guess,
right,
language that's spoken right now. So, but yeah, so I guess the only things is just trying to, because we can't read what we're putting out there. And so we have gotten some feedback of we've incorrectly put some words up.
Oh, that'll happen for sure. Yeah.
And then sometimes some of the dialects they're just a bit different from each other, but close enough that we think we're using the right word. And I think that's probably where the misunderstandings come in. And then also there's been criticism of just like, like when we are using the language, how is that coming across to people who are trying to learn their language, whether that's kind of a negative thing in the fact that we're, maybe not taking into consideration and trying to make people feel bad about it, but that's totally not our intention at all. We're really trying to just provide another avenue of understanding the artwork. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very complicated, and obviously there's a lot of, difficult conversations that come with language and the attempted erasure of so many cultures and languages from colonization. But when you're sort of navigating those waters, what's it like sort of starting these conversations, or hearing maybe some difficult criticisms of like, hey, you shouldn't be doing this or doing that or whatever you guys are hearing, but what's it like sort of navigating those waters when it's such an emotionally charged conversation for a lot of people?
Well, we try to be very tactful.
Of course.
We do take the feedback in. And there's sometimes when somebody does find like an incorrect misuse of the word or something, like we do try to follow up with some of the translators just to see if that's, maybe something happened there. So but yeah, I mean, it's pretty good so far. Like I don't know, have you found anything that's been
Well, it's like when we're reading them and we're all standing and they're looking at it and we're all trying to say something and everyone's like, "Oh, I don't know if I said it right," like, and that's always just like we're learning. We're learning and it's okay to make mistakes. So that's the way I approach it, is it's okay to make mistakes because we're really trying hard here.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. And humility is so important when it comes to translation and all these things, because they're such crazily emotional subjects and stuff. But why do you think art and language kind of go hand in hand in a way of being able to express yourself and being able to sort of say what you want to say? Maybe if you don't have the words for it, you have a picture for it, or if you don't have the picture, you have a sculpture. If you don't, maybe just talk about the connection between language and art and how they kind of go hand in hand a little bit.
Well, like I said, going back, like ever since artists have been presenting at Urban, like they have been incorporating some sort of word or naming in their titles or projects, and just to see like how Indigenous languages have really been um, supported over the years, especially with the with all the what is it called at the U of M, the it's like that calls to action, what is
TRC.
it, the TRC's call to action, and that's one of the main calls to action is to incorporate more Indigenous languages. So for us it's like, I don't know, I feel like it's just like, I can't remember what the question was. Sorry.
Well, I just mean sort of in general, speaking to how language and art have always sort of been intertwined, right? Yeah. And you, like you mentioned, so many artists have been incorporating, even if just the title or the description or something in their Indigenous language. But like, why do you think language and art are so intertwined?
Mm-hmm. And that's what I was thinking, like just now, because of the TRC calls to action. And also a lot of artists are really interested in going back and learning more about their histories and stuff. So so it just seems like it's just something that's naturally happening. And I think for me, when I see that happening, when artists are using more language, it's like, I don't know, I feel like sometimes it's kind of a more poetic way to describe the projects. And yeah, it just it's really great, like, and I think it's just also artists want to learn their own language, so they're little by little they're putting that into their own work. So
it's a beautifully collaborative project, which is really, really cool. That's one of the coolest things about it. How do you think the approach to Indigenous art has changed over the last like decade or so, or how it's kind of, now we have the art gallery Komayak and everything that's kind of coming out of there, and just the general conversation and just the average person's awareness of Indigenous art, I think is improving day by day. But how do you think it's changed over the last decade or so?
oh, it's changed significantly for sure. And just kind of thinking of like how Urban started as a response, because Indigenous artists weren't getting shows, curators weren't really interested in the work. It was really hard for artists to get exhibitions. So, this place, this gallery started as a safe space for artists to be able to present to one another, talk about ideas, and they started bringing in more outsiders to work with them, other curators from other parts of Canada. And so yeah, it's interesting in the last probably 5 years, because there's been such a push from different levels of government and funders, and just to for institutions to indigenize. So however that's been happening, Urban's been part of that upswing, and people have been contacting us as a resource to kind of learn more things about how to work with Indigenous artists and stuff, which isn't really any different than working any other artists. But I think people are just trying to be careful, and they're trying to, approach it in a really good way. So yeah, so I just find that there's a lot more opportunities for Indigenous artists now with all types of galleries and institutions. And so it's a really amazing thing to see.
It's beautiful to see, for sure. So what's next for Urban? What's next for you? What's next on the docket? How's 2022 looking for you when it comes to shows and exhibitions and galleries and everything?
It's looking pretty good. We are kind of going to start half opening up now. Like as if we've already been, like I said, like doing it by appointment only. But I think maybe we can start moving into a little bit more regular, just open door. We're still trying to be safe and adhere to all the restrictions and protocols around health wise. But also, one thing we didn't mention is that, we also want to put a shout out to Canadian Heritage, because once we had the Winnipeg Foundation backing, we started building more projects. And so with the Winnipeg Foundation, we started with the didactics and text materials, but now Janell has even more amazing projects. So do you want to mention those ones?
Yeah, so right now we're working on a project called the Speech Act Project, and it's a partnership with Winnipeg Trails Association. So we're taking some gallery programming out on the trails.
Oh, cool.
And so upcoming, there's going to be 2 public programs that have bike tours.
Awesome.
And it's going to be in the winter. So in March and April, look out for those bike tours, and we'll go visit a spot that we're activating with some Indigenous architecture, a bench with sound where you can hear the language.
Oh, nice.
And
That's
then
awesome.
the other one is going to be in the digital landscape, and it's going to be an app that helps you learn language while you're out.
Wow. New tech. It's all brand new.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. We're really finding unique ways of doing more audio and language, which is really, really exciting.
Well, it just sounds like a convergence of nature and technology and language and art. And that's, check. Those are pretty cool things. Yeah. That's very cool.
We're pretty ambitious right now, but
hey,
it's fun.
That's the way to be, for sure. So if people want to learn a little bit more about Urban Shaman Gallery, where do they go? Is it Urban, or I think I have it.
Yeah, it's on our website. It's the best place to find all the information. We just got a new website too, so we're actually doing a launch. I'm not sure when this podcast will be produced, but on December 4th, we're doing an artist talk with the current artist we have right now, Nadia Mir. We're doing it by registration, up to 25 people. So she's going to speak at 2, and then from 3 to 5, we're going to do a launch of the website. We're doing a publication, also language-based, one of the exhibitions Janell curated. And we also have some news swag for our 25th year anniversary. So,
Very exciting.
All of that can be found on the new website, www.urbanshaman.org.
Fantastic. Urbanshaman.org for that information. Ladies, thank you so much for talking to me. At the end of our time together, we do a little segment called Just Because, where I ask the same 7 questions of all my guests, just about the causes you care about and the effect that it's had on your lives. That's the cause and effect. Are you okay to go through that with us?
Yeah, sure.
All right. I guess we'll just do sort of one answer first and then the other answer second if you want, or however you guys want to kind of do it. But the first question is, what is the very first cause you ever remember caring about?
Oh, yeah. When I was younger, I was living in the northwest area of Winnipeg, and we had a group of us, and we played football, and we went for bike rides, and we played baseball, and we called ourselves the Jigtown Jiggers. It's very passionate about that.
Wow, that's a great cause. Are you still active with the group today? Is that still a group?
We like to talk. We like to talk, but not much action.
Hey, sounds fun. That's great. Daina, do you have the answer for that one?
I'm not sure so much a cause, but I guess for me, it's always been about art. So I think just knowing that, I was an Indigenous person, I was adopted, so I didn't really know what type of Indigenous person I was. But art has always been kind of always in my head since I was a kid, and I remember that very, very succinctly.
I spoke with Erica Daniels on the podcast. She's a filmmaker out of Winnipeg, and we talked a lot about identity and how art and she's a filmmaker, so her art form is film. And she just talked about how knowing yourself and being able to express yourself through art is such an important part of figuring out who you are. Did you go through that experience at all?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Very cool. Awesome. So question 2, if money and politics and logistics were no issue at all, you could just snap your fingers and something would happen. What's the first thing you would do in support of your current cause, which could be art or languages or whatever cause you currently are focusing on?
Mine would be make Indigenous languages official languages.
It's a good one.
Very cool.
I guess once again, it'd come back to coming back to art. I just wish that artists could make a living, have a full-time job as their passion and as their profession. So
Beautifully said. I've been talking about that a lot because of how much art and things I've been consuming during the pandemic. I really hope people are like, hey, maybe we should pay these people, a handsome salary to
Yeah,
make this stuff for
give
us,
me some
right?
money.
Exactly. No, great answer. I love that. Question 3, what's the biggest misunderstanding or stigma about your cause?
For language, Roger Roulette told me like it's not, the languages aren't dying, like they're not extinct, they're still there. It's the institutions that need to step up. And so more institutions need to step up.
Beautifully said. Yeah, agreed fully. Daina, same question.
Yeah, I think just kind of build on that, this idea of indigenizing institutions. I think that there's just to be able to let people know, like, even though maybe you're hiring an Indigenous person within your staff, it's really hard for them to be able to kind of make change happen on a huge level if they're only one person. And it's like it's a system, right? And like, how are they supposed to create all this change when they're just one person? So I think the idea of indigenization, which I think language really kind of fits right into, is just being able to, realize that it takes a lot more than just one person to be able to, affect change. So
beautifully said. Awesome. So question 4, what's a recent victory, either personally or professionally, that you'd be willing to share with us?
Well, I already shared this one about the Speech Act project. So that one's a big victory.
That's awesome.
For me, professionally and personally.
Congratulations. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I have to agree with her. I think just being able to have this formally within our programming is really great. And I hope it's something that's going to be some way that we can permanently keep it going over the years. So
very cool. Question 5, what's the best advice that you've ever been given?
Best advice. I don't know. I guess proofread. Proofread before publishing.
Yeah. Good one.
Check and double check, and then triple check. Yeah, that's a great answer. Very good. Daina, do you want to take a stab at that one?
I think this might kind of fall into a bit of reconciliation. I know that when I was producing art when I was younger, when I was in art school, I was really, I kind of started learning about the residential school stuff and how awful it was. And, I started feeling really kind of emotional around it. I felt like, oh, I could do a project on this. But then not really understanding, kind of who that's going to trigger. And am I that person to bring that up? So I think I think artists have to be very careful right now, especially because everybody is really getting caught up in the whole residential school thing. And it's, like there are families and people who have experiences personally who, maybe that's just not the way they want to see it or hear about it. So yeah, I think we just got to be careful on the way that we kind of keep bringing up these types of situations.
For sure. Yeah, that's a great perspective and an important thing to remember. Very, very, very good. Maybe for both of you, what advice would you give your younger self if you could look back and talk to both of them, and just what advice would you pass forth if you could?
Keep going. You're doing good.
Just keep swimming. I love it. Yeah, no, that's good for everyone, right? Like, yeah, for sure. Great answer.
Yeah, I think pretty much the same thing. I just kind of wish I had maybe pushed moving into art in a little younger stage. I could never seem to get into it when I was in the high school classes and stuff. So I really started pursuing it after I graduated. But yeah, I think it's just trying not to take it all too seriously and just, really enjoy what I was doing. So
yeah, same. When I was in school, art was kind of like a secondary, like it wasn't really a main focus. It certainly wasn't like, hey, you could be an artist, it's like there was no one saying that, right? So it's just beautiful now that in today's day and age we can say like, this is a path you can go down, and hopefully we can get some more funding and everything towards the arts. But you can make a living, kids. You can do it if you try.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you both for the conversation so far. I really appreciate your time. The last question is usually the hardest for people, but what do you want to be remembered for?
For me, I look up to what people always say about my grandpa. And they always say that he's a hard worker. And I'm like, I want to be a hard worker. I remembered for that.
I was going to say the exact same thing. Hardworking.
Well,
contributing to the arts, hopefully.
Beautiful. Well, are you guys satisfied with each other, working with each other? Are you both hard workers? Can you confirm that?
Yeah.
Great. Well, Jaina.
What about you, Nolan?
I work hard most of the time, I will say. I do like to relax and, play video games, as you can maybe see my section here. But I definitely work hard when I'm passionate about the project that I'm working on, right? Like when I was in high school and stuff, I didn't really love a lot of the things that I was doing. So I was kind of like, you just half-ass it a little bit. But now that I'm working at the foundation and I'm really passionate about, talking to people like you and just being able to sort of do good work, I feel that I'm proud of. It's really easy to work hard on work that you're excited and enthusiastic about. So yeah, good question.
And being like that is just like being a kid, right?
Yes, exactly.
That's just how kids are. We were just kids.
Every day I'm like, I get to do this as a job, just talk to two, amazing human beings and just like get inspired every day. Like pretty good gig.
Oh, awesome.
Well, thank you guys for talking to me, Janell and Daina, both from Urban Shaman. Again, urbanshaman.org for all your information. You can check out the virtual tours, check out all of their stuff. There's so much stuff on that website already. So yeah, it's a great view and it was a great conversation. So thank you very much for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having us.